This is a $300 million project, and we want to make sure the funding is being spent correctly. Let's talk a little bit about budget and acknowledge that there's been some changes. So how much is all this going to cost? Where's that funding coming from? How's it broken out? Delve into that a little bit.
So the budget that we're carrying now for the entire Midtown campus renovation is about $265 million. It's a different project. It's a very different project from the Central Library plan, because under that plan, the Mid-Manhattan Library was going away, and we are pretty confident about the costs for the Mid-Manhattan Library. We've done a lot of estimating, and based on the schematics which you've seen, we feel pretty confident that we can build this building for $200 million. We feel pretty confident that we can build this building for $200 million.
This is a $300 million project, and we want to make sure the funding is being spent correctly.
I think that this plan is very expensive, and I think it's an expensive way of getting rid of SIBL. You go to SIBL, which will be used very valuably as they're proposing during the transition phase. It is a very valuable resource. It was completed recently in 1996. It was considered a state-of-the-art library upon completion. In terms of technology, it is absolutely state-of-the-art in terms of supplying computers. I don't think we should be cavalierly getting rid of SIBL, and I don't understand why that is a proposal. This is a far better plan than the Central Library plan, which we litigated against and helped to derail. If you have this kind of money to spend on this library, and particularly if you're willing to put more books in it, so that we have books more like we used to have, there are a lot of things that are good about this design. We have asked repeatedly for a census of the books in the numbers that they used to be before the Central Library plan was concocted.
Okay.
And NYPL has refused to give that.
That's one question.
Okay.
Second question.
The second question is we would like to see the contracts that were requested to be seen with Booz Allen, both from the NYPL and from the BPL.
That's your second question.
All right.
Third
well,
question.
Let's throw in the Queens Library, too, because they also had a contract with Booz and Company. Booz Allen Hamilton was hired in connection with the dismantling of the libraries and this reorganization that's getting rid of books shortly before the Central Library plan and now this replacement. And that was right after the NYPL board had been advised, according to its minutes, that the government was going to require the NYPL to, quote, re-engineer their internet service facilities to enhance law enforcement's ability to monitor and accept internet communications.
The Booz Allen Hamilton concern, what exactly is your concern here? What are we concerned about? What are we alleging?
Well, one of the things we've given you, there's an addendum to the testimony that I've submitted, and you'll see that we have a resource page at Citizens Defending Libraries, which is links to many articles and excerpts about surveillance in libraries. So Booz was hired shortly after Connecticut librarians had won a fight against the Patriot Act and surveillance. But the changes that are being made in the libraries basically wind up being an end run around the kind of victory those Connecticut librarians won. The American Library Association has adopted resolutions pointing out to the importance of preserving the libraries as zones of privacy free from surveillance. And just 2 weeks ago issued an advocacy alert on the subject.
Right, but you don't know for a fact that NYPL's work with Booz Allen is about snooping and spying and revealing proprietary information about library users?
I don't know for a fact, and I don't know that it's not. Now, the NYPL has not been willing to produce the contracts with Booz, and we have foiled the contracts with Booz and Company with the Brooklyn Public Library, and they have been unwilling to produce them. Right. Now, the United States government does 70% of its surveillance through private firms. Of that, 80% is with 5 firms. The top firms of those 5 firms is Booz Allen. Their principal work is surveillance for the federal government. The questions have to be asked. There's a drastic reduction of books, and it results in the opportunity for surveillance. We also were told last night that the NYPL has stopped collecting science books. I mean, we have a whole library that's called the Science, Industry, and Business Library. And the reason was that they said, well, people can just go to the internet. Well, I know a lot of people who are studying climate science these days, and they're reading a lot of books. It's not available elsewhere. And what we need to address what is going to potentially destroy our planet, probably the greatest threat, is for our population to understand climate science and to have access to the science that could create solutions. We cannot be shrinking our libraries at this point.
What are you most worried is going to disappear in a Trump administration?
Frankly, we have no idea. This upcoming administration is very aware of the power of the internet and how it can be manipulated, how you can go and push things out in the middle of the night and use the journalist system in ways that are really pretty blatant. So let's at least keep a record of it. The history of libraries is a history of loss. Libraries are burned. That's what happened to the Library of Alexandria. It'll be what happens to us. Just don't know when. So let's design for it. Let's go and make copies in other places. Let's make sure people want universal access to all knowledge, that they want education based on facts. Let's go and make sure that there is a environment that supports libraries. That's the only way that in the long term we're going to survive.
A small army of volunteer archivists, scientists, and advocates have been working to save the government climate change research that already exists.
If we start out with 1% or less surrounding a particular issue that reflects what Abraham Lincoln called the public sentiment, that is, public opinion, you're almost unstoppable. And if you connect on left-right issues, civil liberties, the Patriot Act, left-right with a vengeance. They don't want the government to search your home and not have to tell you for 72 hours or get into your medical and financial records without probable cause, or your library records without probable cause. How come we don't hear about this in many other examples? Because the ruling groups for over 2,000 years have controlled people by divide and rule. So they focus on the division, and they ignore the convergence that would be an unstoppable political force. Do you want to see a legislator or a lawmaker go pale and have the knees shake? Walk into their office with conservatives and liberals and say, we are a left-right coalition. They don't know how to game you. They know how to game you if you come in as liberal group or as conservative group. They don't know how to game a union of both. When you get down to where people live, work, and raise their family, the ideologies tend to wither away.
This is a $300 million project, and we want to make sure the funding is being spent correctly.